slowly, gingerly in front of us after 2 years of war. What do you make of them?
Thank you for having me. Well, it's a very dramatic moment, of course. It's a moment where both Israelis and Palestinians share some sort of a hope, I would say, at least for the short term. Let's all hope that it will going to be even more than short term, but this is, of course, a very dramatic moment.
And in terms of that short term versus long term, of course, part of the concern about the longer term is the disarmament of Hamas and the injecting, if you like, of a stable security force in Gaza. We've seen efforts, both with Hamas and with other groups, try and fail to do that previously. What hope is there that this one might be a success? Is it all down to Donald Trump?
Well, I must be very realistic because Hamas is clearly saying that he's not going to disarm itself. The Palestinian president Mahmoud Abbas, as well as all other regional leaders, demand Hamas to disarm itself. He's not willing to do that. So we should expect some very significant, I would say, turbulent process towards that goal. But in the end of the day, it has to be very clear, and everybody understands that in the end of the day, if Hamas will be able to continue to keep its military capacities to the point it will be able to continue and dictate its radical agenda, obviously it's a dead-end street.
I wonder if you can talk us through the role that Egypt, Qatar and Turkey play here. They've been key in these mediation talks. As we look at a future security for the region, what role do these three nations serve?
Their role is crucial. I've been saying for many years, and I think it's very clear right now, any kind of a breakthrough, a progress, I don't even talk about peace because I don't think it's currently relevant, but any kind of a breakthrough in the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict cannot take place without what I call a regional envelope. And the regional envelope meaning bringing into the picture proactively the major players in the region like Egypt, like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and Turkey, because they all have a lot of influence and power over Hamas. By the way, I would say that this is one of the most significant aspects of the achievements of Trump initiative, to the sense that he was able actually to bring Arab players to step off the fence, sort of speaking, and take much more proactive position vis-a-vis the whole challenge that is called Gaza Strip.
You mentioned those strategic players in the region. Less involved are other noteworthy countries, Lebanon, Syria, for example. Of course, Iran has completely stepped out of the negotiations here, was never involved in them. How significant is that?
It's enormously significant. We should remember that in the end of the day, it was the Iranian regime, through what is called the axis of resistance, that was fueling the flame of the conflict for the last 40 years, and particularly when it comes to Gaza Strip. One of the most significant outcomes of October 7 is what we call the domino effect that resulted in the weakening of this axis of resistance, the Iranian-backed axis of resistance, like Hezbollah, like Hamas and others. And as it for itself, that is a good news. However, we should bear in mind that the Iranian regime is still looking for ways to restore its influence across the region. But as long as the Iranian regime is unable to continue its ability to fuel the flames of the conflict as it has been doing for the last 40 years, particularly in the context of Gaza, this is of course very significant. As for Lebanon and Syria and Iraq, they are basically struggling to get free of the Iranian deadly grip, but this is of course a long-term process.
There's been lots of focus, unsurprisingly, on what this potential peace agreement means for Donald Trump, his influence, his legacy. What about Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Well, you used a very accurate and significant word, and that is legacy. I think that Mr. Netanyahu is mostly engaged with its legacy. I think that it's very clear that one way or another in the history, Mr. Netanyahu is going to be recorded in the context of the inner Israeli public discussion in a very controversial perspective. Obviously, I'm not reflecting here my own personal political views. I'm just reflecting the Israeli public opinion vis-a-vis Mr. Netanyahu. It's very clear that Mr. Netanyahu understands that in the end of the day, he is going to be viewed in the record, sort of speaking, particularly in the context of the story of October 7 and the aftermath of October 7. And I think that to a large extent, he will be and will remain as a controversial figure in the history of the State of Israel.
Okay, Avi Melamed, Middle East strategic intelligence analyst and founder of the inside the Middle East Institute. Mr. Melamed, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.